You ever made a landlord regret breaking a lease agreement? When I moved into this small house in a college town, it felt like the perfect setup. The rent was cheap, the place had just been remodeled, it had a little fenced yard for my dog, and even came with a washer and dryer. Everything looked great, except for one thing, the owner. Even though he had a property management company handling the rent and maintenance, he would show up constantly. Sometimes he'd say he wanted to inspect something or plan a renovation. Other times, he'd just hang around chatting about random things. His son had lived there before me, so I guess he was used to treating the place like it was still his backyard. At first, I was polite. I'd make small talk and hope he'd leave, but he never got the hint. After several surprise visits, I finally called the management company. I reminded them that the law in our state required 24-hour notice before a landlord visit, and my lease specifically said all communication with the owner had to go through them. They said they'd handle it, but the owner wasn't happy about being told to follow the rules. A couple of weeks later, the management company pulled their own stunt. It was a college town, so they were always desperate to lock in tenants early. I'd been living there for only 2 weeks when one morning, someone let themselves into the house unannounced to drop off a renewal letter. No knock, no call, just unlocked the door and stepped inside. Unfortunately for them, I was in the middle of doing yoga in my underwear. The poor girl they sent froze like she'd seen a ghost while I scrambled to grab a towel. After that, they stopped entering without notice. Despite that awkward start, I liked the place enough to stay. 6 months later, I renewed for a full year. The lease was signed by both the management company and the property owner. Everything was official. Then about 3 months later, I got a text directly from the owner. "Hey," he wrote, "I heard you renewed, but my daughter got accepted to the university. I need the house for her next year." I stared at my phone for a minute, confused. Not only was he not supposed to contact me directly, but I already had a valid lease for the next year. So I called the management company. "Hi," I said. "The property owner contacted me saying he's not renting the house next year." "Yes," the representative replied. "It looks like the property won't be available next year." I paused. "You realize I have a lease signed by both your company and the owner for that period, right?" There was silence on the other end. Finally, she said, "Well, the owner no longer wants to lease the property, but we can help you find another one." I could tell they thought I'd just give up. Not a chance. "So you're saying your company is breaking the lease?" I asked calmly. No one's breaking anything," she said quickly. "Then explain how I have a signed contract for a property that you're now saying won't be available." She tried to push it off. "You'll have to work it out with the owner." I smiled to myself. "Actually, my lease says all communication with the owner has to go through your company. So this is between you and him. I've done my part. I signed the lease, paid the rent, and agreed to the terms. Good luck sorting it out." That's when I got transferred to one of the company's owners. While I was on hold, I reread my lease and noticed a small clause. It said the management company was responsible for providing accommodations during periods when the property is unavailable or inaccessible. It was vague, but technically it could apply here. When the company owner got on the phone, he tried to sound authoritative. "I know the property owner personally," he said. "There's no disagreement. He just wants his daughter to live there so we won't be renting it out next year." "Got it," I said. "So are you breaking the lease contract we signed?" "Of course not," he said defensively. "So the contract stands?" I asked. "Yes, but the property won't be available." I took a deep breath. "Then you'll need to provide housing elsewhere at no cost to me for the full duration of the lease." "That's what the lease says right here." I read the exact clause to him. He went quiet. A few seconds later, the line went dead. They never called back. I suspect they realized they'd cornered themselves. The company must have told the owner that his signature made the lease binding, and that if they tried to back out, they'd have to pay for my housing somewhere else. The owner sent a few passive-aggressive texts threatening eviction, but I ignored them. I had the law and the lease on my side. Nothing ever came of it. I stayed there the entire next year, paid my rent on time, and the management company left me alone. The owner never dropped by again either. When the lease finally ended, I moved out quietly, left the keys on the counter, and locked the door behind me. That was the last I ever heard from them.